Every now and then, an artist you may not have heard of previously crosses your path and their work stops you in your tracks. And you think to yourself, wow, the world of art textiles is so vast and amazing with so many artists out there to discover. How lucky am I? Barbara Schneider is an artist that uses nature as the starting point for creating abstract, sophisticated interpretations in mixed media. Her work is designed to make you view nature with new eyes. Barbara began quilting in 1996 and discovered the pleasure of working with cloth, paint, dye and thread. Her ongoing interest in the Japanese concept of Wabi-Sabi, finding beauty in the things that are imperfect, impermanent and incomplete, is at the core of all her artwork. Capturing the essence of images made of light and movement, images that are infinitely variable. She asks herself, what does the eye see? What does the camera see? What does the mind see? Barbara has an extensive background in surface design, exhibits nationally and internationally, and her artwork is in both private and public collections. Barbara's newest series is Observations, Walking in Wonder, which interprets the observations she made as she walked the McHenry County Conservation District sites into hand-stitched textiles, taking her 2 years to complete. I'm sure you'll find Barbara's artwork and commitment to conservation and the environment as inspiring as each other. I look forward to sharing her beautiful textile art with you tonight, including past and current bodies of work. So please join me in welcoming Barbara all the way from Woodstock, Illinois. Let's get started. Hello, Barbara.
Hello there.
It is Woodstock. You said Chicago before. Is it Woodstock or is that?
It is Woodstock. Woodstock's about 50 miles outside of Chicago, but nobody knows where Woodstock is. So usually I just say Chicago area.
Well, it sounds cool. Woodstock sounds cool.
Well, if you've seen the film Groundhog Day, yeah, which has been around forever, it was filmed in Woodstock. That's our one claim to fame. That's where it was filmed. So.
Yeah, Bill Murray, wasn't it?
Yep, it was.
Yeah. My husband, I just saw my husband's face. He was very proud of me then for remembering somebody's name, an actor's name. That never happened.
I'm not very good at that either.
Yeah.
I recognize them, but I can't remember names well. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know it's your evening on Thursday and it's our Friday morning, and I really appreciate it. We've got lots of people watching and they are more than welcome to make a comment, say hello to Barbara and ask any questions. We've got some beautiful work to show you. I'll say just today, not say this morning or this evening, but today. Hi, Julianne. Lovely to see you. Hello, Jeannie Marie. This is gorgeous. The beautiful Noni's with us. Hi. Noni discovered your work when I did, when I said that we were going live with you today, and she just loved it as well. So
thank you.
Oh, cool. Janet knows Woodstock. That is awesome.
Yeah. And Indiana, right next door. So
that is great. Hi, Catherine from Auckland. It's midday here. Great. Good. Hello, and Barbara. And Barbara. Yeah, thank you, Veronica.
Yes, thank you.
It's so lovely. It's so lovely that we can connect from all different time zones and from around the world. So how have things been for you in the last sort of 12 months? You've been keeping creative?
Oh, yes. That's, it didn't make a huge difference in working because I was pretty much used to working on my own by myself anyway. So I just did more work. For a while, I tried to move everything home from my studio and discovered that wasn't such a great idea. So I went back to the studio and just closed the door and worked there again.
Yeah. So you find it much easier to work away from home, like have that separation?
I'm torn. For a long time, I did work from home and down in the basement and kind of took over. And then 10 years ago, I remarried and my new husband moved in, and then I had more kids coming to stay and things like that. So what used to be workspace became more of a place for others to come and stay. And I was lucky to find this space. It's about 25 minutes away from me in a different town, and it's an old industrial building. And a man up there had bought it when the city was getting ready to tear it all down. And he has very slowly turned it into artist studios and event space and things like that. And I was lucky to get a space in there. So when I moved my things from home, my home studio, to there, it felt kind of like the whole clown car idea where things just kept, how did everything fit here when it immediately filled up this new space, which was much bigger. But
I'm going to
it's the nature of it.
Because we're talking about your studio, I'm going to show you some pictures of it so people can actually get a visual representation of it. And it is beautiful. I'm sure, be careful people, there's going to be some studio envy right now. So I'll pop some images up. So this is the entrance into it. And then your big working surfaces are amazing. Look at that.
Yes, there are two of those, and then this area at the back that's sort of storage and books and sewing and all those kinds of things over near where the windows are for better light.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. And then another, oh yes, that's a big piece in the background too. Yeah.
So.
And a printing press. Wow.
Yeah, that's a fairly new addition in the last couple of years. I had really I had done printmaking when I was in college, and I went back to doing some monoprinting, and over time I ended up deciding I was going to get a press and be able to do more work. I just don't seem to find enough time to do it all. So right now the printing press is supposed to be the focus for this summer. We'll see.
That's so exciting. One of my questions was actually, how much time do you spend physically in the studio? Because looking through your work and your collections and your series that you've been working on, there's a lot of work there. And even just looking at the studio, you can tell that you're very busy. Like you must be. How long do you spend there?
It changes from week to week, just depending on what else is going on. But I try to, on a good week, try to spend like 3 days there. And the way the studio is set up, I like to kind of move from project to project because, it just seems to give time for you to think in between about your next steps. If I go from doing this to doing something else and then keep coming around to my stations along the way. And I find that helpful. And it is great to have that amount of space to just be able to leave things out and not have to move something aside to do something else. And I share the space with another woman who's a book artist. And our schedules work out pretty well because I'm an early bird. So I'm usually in there early in the morning and stay till like 2 o'clock in the afternoon or so. And she's a late bird. So she likes to work in the later afternoon and evening. So that works out great. Sometimes we don't even see one another for a couple of weeks at a time.
Yeah, oh, that's beautiful. Well, there's certainly, it says she's definitely got studio envy. And Veronica says it's an installation in its own right. So that's beautiful. Yeah, I know, envy. It's so easy to be envious, isn't it?
It is.
But it is
all I can
beautiful.
say is I waited a long, long time to get that. So
you did. Yeah. What was your journey into fibre and textile arts? How did it all come about, Barbara? Share your story with us.
Well, I when I was in school, I went to college at the Institute of Design in Chicago for visual design, and came out of that with a degree in visual design. and worked for quite some time in the publishing industry. And along the way, I did a master's degree in art and also an awful lot of business stuff. So I worked for an educational publisher for close to 20 years and went from design into heading up that department and taking on responsibility for production and manufacturing and things like that. So I ended up with a pretty broad background in all of educational publishing kinds of things. And it was in 1996 that I decided, I really I wanted to get back into doing something more tactile. And I had been doing some paper making, but by the time I'd get things set up and get something done, the weekend would be over. So I decided I was going to do like something each day, just a small quilt piece or explore a technique, one a day. And they just continued to accumulate until I had 365 days. And then I figured out how to put that all together. And when I stepped back and looked at that, there was nothing in any of those 365 days that spoke to me about my work situation. So that made me stop and think some more about, maybe it was time to figure out how to change my life. And my first husband at the time was quite ill. So it worked out that I moved into consulting so I could have a little more control over my time, and that gave me time to start exploring what I wanted to do in the textile area. And I took a lot of workshops. I did Jane Dunawald's master class, the 2-year program, and then some other things, and just gradually developed a style and tried to combine that with my interest in Japanese art, and just evolved.
Yeah.
Like things do.
That is so lovely. Yeah. I love that you recognized that you needed that time and gave yourself the space to do it and change things around to make sure it happened and followed the path. That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It did feel like it was stepping off a cliff, but I'm glad I did it. It was huge.
Yeah. Did
it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but now that you say 1996, I'm like, that's 25 years. That's a big chunk.
That is a big chunk. That's a massive chunk. Yeah. But, I'm sure there's still lots to be done.
Yes.
Barbara.
More ideas than time.
Yeah, that's right. That's beautiful. Your work is what I loved about it when I came across you, and I'm relatively new to the, sort of the fibre art space, only sort of really discovering it maybe 5-6 years ago. My mother-in-law, Noni's been a textile artist for decades, and she would always be doing it, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's lovely, that's great, and then something changed, and it was just like, oh, okay, I get it now, like I actually get it now. So have you always had that love of textiles, and was it always part of you, or was it just something that you happened upon?
No, I think it probably was always there, even as a kid and young adult, and that I did a lot of sewing, and I always loved the feel of fabrics and stuff. And then, with doing the paper making, that's working with still fiber in a different way. And somehow the whole idea of like stitching on the paper and trying to move that in some new direction just became a turn into working more with real, actual textiles. So, and I still like exploring the possibilities of some new materials, but without getting too far out there. In terms of, I'm trying to be more careful about health issues and environmental issues and all those kinds of things. So I try to limit how much of that I'm willing to explore for those reasons too.
Yeah, you have to be so mindful, don't we, what we're putting into our bodies, but also down the sink.
Yes, yes.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah, down the sink and into the air and just
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, that's it. That's right. I'd love to talk about and show people some of the series that you've been
Sure.
working on over the years. I just was fascinated with your line series and the leaves and your still lifes. They're just really, really beautiful. Have you always worked in a series? Like, was that your intent? Is that your intention, or is it just organically that's what works for you?
I think it's because yes, I do like to work in series, and actually, it all falls under an umbrella. I think of it as an umbrella of that Japanese concept of wabi-sabi and really finding beauty, as you said earlier, in things that are imperfect or ephemeral. And there's something about that whole concept and how much I like Japanese art and craft that became kind of the overarching thing that if I was going to explore something, it fell under that. And that helps to at least keep a little focus because, you can always, I can always find something that's like, oh, I'd really like to do that. But then other work doesn't get done. So I've just really committed myself to I'm working on things that fall in series so that there's a depth that happens in terms of that exploration and what you've learned from one piece you then play out in the next and the next and the next, and that feels very centering, I guess is as good a word as any.
I think that's a lovely way of describing it, having depth in your work. And it's come up a few times recently. I was speaking to Rebecca Crowell a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about abstract art and, how do you keep it, and she said abstract art is like you've got a road down the highway, but it's got the, you've got your lanes, but you've also got the bumpers on the side,
That's a good way to put it.
So you feel free to go anywhere you like, but stay within those bumpers. You might fall off the cliff.
Or end up in the woods.
You might. In this case, and your woods, oh my goodness. I want to make sure I get the line dance. Can I show a few photos of this work? What inspired this work, Barbara?
Well, one of the things I really love to do is walk and hike, and not only going places to hike, but just in my general area, I get out and do that because I find that that's a place where I can really, when I'm walking, ideas come and resolve themselves more easily than anywhere else. And so I do a lot of walking in the woods, and I started photographing not only the leaves, which we'll talk about later, but the like downed trees and tree stumps, which most people would just, going back to the wabi-sabi concept, you would just walk by and think it's a dead tree. But if you photograph them, and there's an awful lot of beauty in the patterns of those stumps. And I would take those images and manipulate them in Photoshop to emphasize things and play out the ideas of how they might become a large quilted piece. And so then after I've manipulated them, I send them to Spoonflower to be printed. And then when they come back, I do more surface design techniques to most of them, not all of them, and then a ton of stitching to create another layer of patterning. And I think part of the reason I like those so much is it's a kind of this duality between these are real and exist in nature, but as they turn out in these pieces, they look fairly abstract. And that like that back and forth of what is it that you're actually seeing here.
Yeah.
So that's the genesis of those. And I think there's 27 or I think 27 in that series. And they've been around to a lot of places. So I think they're pretty successful.
So they've been exhibited a lot?
They have.
Yeah. And do you sell them?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Not as many as I'd like, but yes, I do.
Are they one-off pieces?
They are.
Like, they're one-off pieces. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first discovered them, I couldn't actually, it took me a while to figure out if they were actual photographs or if they were like quilts or and how it was just, I was like, is that a photo? I think it was this one actually that got me. I was like, what am I actually, like, it was literally, what am I actually looking at? Is this, it took me a long time to realize that it was actually stitched.
It is. That one, actually, you have the back of it in one of these photos because it's black. That's the amount of stitching. Everything that's on the front that shows as a black crack is stitched. And just so when you can see it for real, there's a lot of depth and texture in there that you need to be up close and personal with it to see. But then I also love just the feel of that, the image itself with what I call them the feathers, but those were probably what I would think of as injuries to the tree at some time. But as a stump, they come across as these sort of feathered areas. And I think that's just an interesting thing about what you can see in nature if you look closely. And part of what I do is blow it up really big, so that again, that's that sense of you're seeing it differently because it's more in your face. And I cannot hear you if you're speaking.
All our internet. Oh, hang on, I think she's back. Oh, hi, Barbara.
Hi there. I lost you.
I know, we just had a storm started and our internet dropped out. I'm so sorry.
I'm glad you're back.
Oh, I'm back. Oh, my goodness. I was like, oh, no, I've lost you. It was so good. That's okay. We can get through anything.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as we were saying, that, yeah, it's just incredible, the beautiful work. How big would something like this be?
Oh, that one's about 5 feet. 5 feet across. Oh, maybe 5.5 by 4.5 high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're pretty. That one's about 5 feet square. And I handled that the same way as that previous one.
Wow. That is beautiful. I'm just checking if we've got people are, wow, amazing. Yeah. Your sister's here too. Hello, Rosemary.
Hi, Rosemary.
Yeah, I love the idea of tree stumps. Yeah. There's some beautiful, we lost you. We're back again. Sorry, guys. There's some beautiful ink prints that people have been doing of tree stumps as well. That's quite nice. I know. Yeah, I've been quite attracted to those for some time now. But I think having the three-dimensional and the tactile nature of the art quilts is something again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the forest floor, that so beautiful. I have to show people the piece behind you, and we might start a bidding war on it. This is the beautiful piece that's behind Barbara. Can you tell us about this glorious.
Yeah, this one was of hollyhock leaves, and in this area at least, hollyhocks get eaten. The leaves get eaten up pretty badly during the summer by insects, so they become very lacy. And so I collected a bunch of those and recreated them. This one is done with. It was like like I've lost my words. Like a thin interfacing
Yes.
material, and I stitched it to death to create all that broken up area, and then used a heat gun to create the holes and basically take material away and then shape them, and then the 6 leaves interact with one another on the wall. So there's a lot of light and shadow coming into play here on this piece.
Yes.
And it was, I think, the 3rd or 4th of the leaf pieces that I did, and that started with, they were more solid leaves, and then gradually they've become more about that insect damaged ones, because just the look of those, and the same thing about size here. You have a slide there for leaf fragments and linden leaves, and linden leaves are like 2 inches, and they look like tiny pieces of lace. And then I made them, probably each leaf was 18 inches, and again a group of them. And it's that same, I feel like a broken record here, but it's the same thing about if you make them bigger, you notice them as objects of beauty instead of just stuff that's fallen on the ground in the fall. And I like that whole idea that you're seeing beauty in a way that you don't expect to.
Yes. Yes, that is so true. Is this the piece that you were talking about being very big pieces?
Yes, those. Yeah. And the leaves for that, I actually have them here, are only like 3 inches tall, but that here, like.
Oh, lovely.
And but the final piece, they're close to 3.5 feet tall, and so the whole piece is 6 feet wide, and they just overlap and connect to one another. And that's, detail on that. And those, I just, I scanned a lot of those leaves and printed them on my home printer, and then went back in and stitched and cut. Those were all cut with like little nail scissors. I learned later that there are other ways to cut that might not wear on my hands quite as quickly as the nail scissors. But you do what you do to get the result you want.
You learn by doing, don't you?
You do.
Yeah. I just loved this image that you sent through of this leaf. And tell, is this where a lot of your inspiration came from when you found this leaf, or how is this significant?
That leaf actually was like got me going on the whole leaf series. I picked it up one day, and I don't even remember where, but again, if you look at it closely, you can see it's got all these like rings and open areas and stuff. And I was just really inspired to recreate that one, and that was really the first one in the whole series. And I made 5 of these with hand dyed fabrics and lots of stitching. There should be a shot in here somewhere of that. Yeah. And those sat around for a couple of years. They were just, I didn't know what to do with them. They were just flat pieces. I try to combine them this way and that way, and I finally put them away for a while. And then somewhere along the line, it occurred to me that if I could shape them, then I could get light and shadow to work with me. on this again. And that really started the whole series, that realization that shaping is what made the difference. Then they came off the wall and really became something that I find interesting.
They're just incredible. And then there's this one here.
Yeah, that one was in Quilt National. I think that was 2014 or 16. I don't remember now, but it's about 6 feet square. And this is when I was still printing leaves on my home printer. And I'd make, another dozen leaves, and they were all individual. And I'd think, okay, I'm getting close to filling up this space. No, it never seemed like it would ever fill up the space. And they were close to 100 leaves in that piece. And then that became kind of a logistical, the whole idea of how do you ship these things and combine them and hang them and all, not my best thing. So it takes a lot of trial and error to figure out how to have the structure for things. I know what I want to do, but I can't always figure out how to do it. So it'd be great to have an engineer on hand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A few people are asking about structure, and they're asking what are the veins in the leaves? Are they wire? And also Barbara asks, how do the leaves keep their form? Again, is it wire? If you're happy to share.
Yeah, the one behind me, it's like floral wire that I've stitched, satin stitched over those wires so that you don't really see them. They look like the vein. In that first early piece that I just spoke about, I just folded the fabric and created a seam there with satin stitch, and went over it like 3 or 4 times, gradually increasing the width of that until it basically had some substance to it. And then this particular piece is stiffened with a stiffening glue. So it would, after the piece was created, it was basically painted over with the glue, and then anything that came into play in the studio that I could drape it over and under and around and pin it into something until it dried in that form is how those got shaped.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Very low tech. So.
Yeah, most things are. I think that we do sometimes get a bit caught up with the how and expect things to be more complicated than what they are, but they're actually, if you keep it simple, usually the best way. Yeah. A couple of people, when we lost power, could I go back and ask some questions about your larger art quilts? Mary asked, are they one strip of fabric or pieces sewn together? I think, Mary, that was referring to the big, the line dance series.
For the most part, they are one piece because all the creation of them was done like in Photoshop and then printed large. Sometimes, well, some of them are too large to even do that. So yes, then I would have found a way to bury a join somewhere in there and then with the stitching disguise it. But they're not pieced in that way at all.
Yeah, not designed to be. Yeah.
No.
And is most of it hand stitched or machine stitched? It looked like machine stitching from the back, but
yeah, for all the work that we've been talking about so far, it's been machine stitched.
Yeah. Do you do much hand stitching at all?
Yeah, the last series here, the observation series, is all hand stitch, and the still life pieces are kind of a combination of thread painting and hand stitching.
Oh, I can't wait to show people those. They're pretty
Excuse
beautiful
me.
as well. And Janet just asked, how long do these large pieces take you to make? Yeah.
Forever, it seems like sometimes. You know, the stitching, maybe 40, 50 hours on a piece. And I can only do so much of that at any one time. It's just, and I'm using a home sewing machine, a Janome. It has a little bit wider space, but it's not an industrial machine or anything. So that's a lot of fabric to move back and forth and around in the machine. So after a while, my arms have had enough. And that's why I go work on something else.
Yeah.
So it takes, if I don't think I've ever actually like written down how many hours on stuff. That might be more than I want to know.
I think the only person that I know of so far that I've ever spoken to that actually his work is very, you might know him, Richard Mcvetus. He's in so the tiny seed stitch, and he actually creates bodies of work around the concept of time.
Yes.
And so and he measures his time in stitch. So it was, when I spoke to him, I actually did some calculations on it, on his project that he was working on, and it was phenomenal, the amount of physical time he had to spend to make this project, the 60 project, I think it was. So most people that we speak to, when they say how long, they just go, well, how long is a piece of string? It takes as long as it takes.
That's true.
I don't want to know how long.
Yeah. Sometimes it seems like you'll never be done. So then it's time to walk away for a while. Come back to it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's lovely to have lots of different things on the go. Before we move into your still lifes, would now be a good time to show the bark?
Sure.
Yeah. I was telling Noni about it last night. I was saying, wait, do you see the bark? And this, I mean, you speak to it, Barbara. It's just incredible.
Okay. Well, this is kind of an offshoot from the leaves. I then started, it's somewhere between the leaves and the tree trunks and the tree stumps and everything else. So I had learned about Foss shape, which is a thermal reactive material. It looks like a quilt bat, but it shrinks when you apply heat. So you can, force it to take on shapes and things that you might not normally have been able to do, and then it will hold those shapes. So I started working with that, and I have this. I started, actually, we don't have these photos, but I started with a series of rocks, of boulders, and was doing like a Zen garden. But then it kind of moved over, okay, rocks, the trees, the leaves, all those things. And so there's several of the logs, and so they have the Foss shape, which can be painted, it can be stitched, it can be burned, it can you can attach other things to it. So they're covered in areas with lichen that was done as machine Solvay-based machine embroidery. And then the one that's up there right now is another piece that's going to the Vision show this fall. I call tree bark fragment, and it's this idea again. You take something small and insignificant and make it big. So this tree fragment's about 5 feet tall and has dimensions. So it's probably about 10 inches in depth, 18 inches wide, 5 feet tall. And it's, again, got layers of this Foss shape connected, and lichen and stitching and holes, and it looks like a piece of bark.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah. And
It's absolutely.
what's in play right now at the studio is an installation piece that's going to be like the forest floor with several logs, lots of rocks, fallen leaves, tree stumps, and like you're walking into a glade in the forest and be part of it. But
Wow.
it's going to be a while yet before that one's done. And then there's the whole thing about, finding it a place to be shown and all those issues. So,
Logistics, yeah.
yeah.
Have you, when I saw this image here, all I wanted to do was, first of all, I wanted to get closer, which was beautiful because you supplied this image and I was like, thank you. Oh my goodness. I can get really into it now, which was beautiful. And then my second thought was I just wanted to take I wanted to touch it. And then I wanted to literally take it out into the forest and photograph it in situ.
Photograph it. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I might do that. Just install the installation in the forest. That could be interesting. Yeah.
Because I actually honestly feel that if you, how you said you were talking about as you were walking through the forest and you may not notice things and you just walk past, if you had that sitting in a forest, if people weren't paying attention, it would just blend. It would be there.
It would blend right in.
The whole installation. Anyway, something to think about. But yeah, I'd love to see that photo if it ever happens.
It will happen. Not right now, but it will happen.
Yeah, I'd love it. It's so beautiful. It's just gorgeous. I'm just okay. I'm just catching up on some comments. So, would you heat to shape before stitching and embellishing? Thanks, B.
It kind of goes back and forth. If I'm building it in sections, I will do stitching to create some of this area for it to sort of get the tension around. And then toward the end, I'll do more hand stitching and that in it, and then attach I'm looking at the piece right here, trying to remember exactly what I did. Attach the lichen and all that's been created separately and then applied to it. And then I often will use a needle felter to embed that, like the lichen, into the fa-shaped stuff. So it really becomes one surface rather than just laying on the top of it. So it's a lot of backing and forthing, just with the end goal that it looks like what my mental image is of what this is going to be.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
All right, and we're going to get onto the still lives because I just can't not talk about these either.
Okay.
They're just gorgeous. I know we're getting on. I know it's getting late for you and you're an early bird, but just
I'm
bear
okay.
with us. Okay, good. You're good. Where are they? Here we go. Your beautiful still life pieces. These are amazing. Talk to us about these and how they came about.
Well, because I love the Japanese arts and crafts, I have a collection of these old boro fabrics. The fabrics that have been are indigo based and have been layered and patched and all of that. And I love looking at those. And I wanted to do something with them. And I also wanted to create some work that was smaller for a change and maybe more, that could be framed or whatever. So I did a series of photos. I set up a series of photos that used the boro fabrics as backgrounds. And then I brought to the studio all kinds of things. Some things are more nature-based that I've collected, and others were Japanese arts and crafts that I've collected at home. So I took these photos and had them printed out, and then on fabric, and then I went back in and basically thread painted the object, in this case, like the leaf and the stalk next to it, are heavily thread painted, and did a fair amount of stitching in the background. I used the needle felter again to basically destroy, which sounds bad, but to create the look of the boro that's gotten so soft and worn looking. So essentially the backgrounds look almost identical to the original boro pieces. And then these were then matted and framed. And there's, I think, 40 of them that have been over, I don't know, 5 years or so. And they were in a solo show at the Textile Center in Minneapolis, and again at the International Quilt Festival, and also at, there's a hospital complex in Michigan, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, that has a program called Gifts of Healing. And it was a show in their cancer ward area. So that one in particular felt very satisfying to have them there. Yeah. And I doing those pieces, doing that kind of stitching was very meditative. And I was telling you earlier, it in some ways took me back to being a kid with crayons, and the whole thing about blending color in that. And there's a piece that I refer to, that white bowl, if you have that one, where it's a white bowl, but there's no white thread in there. There might be a pale gray and a pale pink and a pale beige and a little yellow, and all those colors end up giving you the impression of white, but it has depth that you wouldn't get if you just filled that area with white thread. And I just really enjoyed working on those, and that led off into another series that we don't have here today on faces. So what I call the beautiful faces. So that one's way out there, but it's still, I don't know, I need to do those every now and then just because it kind of refocuses things.
Yes, just a reset. Mm-hmm. We'll pop a link up on your website, make sure people can go back and re-look at your different series that we don't have to show today. It's a beautiful, it's easy to navigate, and we'll pop a link up so people can enjoy. Yeah, definitely. They're certainly enjoying them, Barbara.
Great.
Really, you know.
I'm seeing some of this.
Yeah. Oh, you are. You can see it. Great. Oh, I'm so pleased. Yeah. Fantastic. And that brings us to your most recent body of work. And I'd love to talk a little bit about your conservation efforts, and I really want to share with people about your tree planting legacy that you've got going on, and how we connected over that. I think that was really beautiful. So the observations.
Okay. Well, I've done a lot of work with the Conservation District and over a number of years. And about 3 years ago now, I actually had thoughts about they're always looking to replant areas. And we're in an area in McHenry County here that used to be about 95% forested, mostly oak trees. And now we have about 5%. And the district is trying to restore a lot of that, replant it. So I had talked with one of the directors about, I'd like to donate to maybe have a grove, a savanna, 50 trees. Well, here I am. That kind of grew like topsy, and I've committed to 1,000 trees over 5 years. So we're up to, this year will be at 574, something like that. And so every fall, I organize with friends and family, and my sister Rosemary, who's on this call, has been there every time. And we go out and plant these, they're about 2.5 feet tall trees. And then my commitment to the district has been to manage that site where they are being planted and go out and measure and check for insect damage and keep an eye on things and record the data for the district. So it's very satisfying. And because I'm out there that much, I'm either there or I'm walking in one of the 27 districts that we have in the county. And that led to the idea of another series of the walks and I've called this series Observations because it's all been about not only the walking, but what do you see and hear and smell, not so much taste, but what is happening on that walk. So I would be taking notes as I went on any scraps of paper I had, because I never really had a notebook for the whole thing. And then those, plus the information and trail maps and things that the district has, I use to create my interpretation of that walk and the terrain that I'm walking through. So, for example, the one that's up now, that dark line is the path that runs through, and that's probably a 3-mile hike or so. And then there would be a grayish blue color that was used to indicate water, a particular kind of stitching for trees, for shrubs, for marsh, for bog, for prairie, and just trying to interpret what was there. And along with it then goes these written observations that list what I saw, and some of those particular observations get pulled out in larger type. So that's kind of a grouping of them. And because there's 27 sites, there are 27 pieces for the show, and they range in size from like 12 by 12 up to 24 by 36, just depending on the site and the complexity of it. And these are photos from the walks. And I ended up making a catalog that incorporates the photos in that as well. And that's all hand stitched. And that was 2 years in the making. And it turned out really well because the district is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. And this became a solo show that's up right now that celebrates all the 27 sites and hopefully inspires people to go out and walk different ones, because I think we all end up going to the place that's closest or the place that we like the best, and they are very different. There's one that has waterfalls, another one that has a little cemetery still within the grounds of it. Some are heavily prairie, others are all wooded. And it just kind of brought together, this project brought together that conservation work with the stitch work. And here we are. So.
Yeah. Well, I'd just like to say personally that I think that it was really beautiful, and thank you so much for emailing me and letting me know about your exhibition. And then that led me to look further into your body of work, and I was like, wow, I must talk to Barbara. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad we got connected. It's been great.
Yeah. And not only that, we've been thinking in the background for a long time that we'd love to do a revegetation project ourselves and sort of align it somehow. Everything, for me, everything needs to be aligned. Like, what you do with, business is not separate to life, is not separate to values. And we'd love to set up a program within our business that for every course we sell, we plant a tree.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it feels right. And I was chatting to a lady that we work with the other day, Monday actually, and I said to her, it was Tara Axford, and I said to her, we're going to name like these sections of the property where we're going to plant them. Like we'll have Axford Way and it'll be Banksias, and then we might have a Harriet, we'll have a weaving garden and a dye garden, and it'll be
That's very cool.
it'll be we'll try and keep it sort of native and in, when we can, but just to revegetate the land. And just, you know what, Barbara, if you can get out there and plant trees with your sister, then there's no excuses for me, right?
That's right. Just get your family and friends to help you.
I will. Yeah. So we'll have Fish Creek tree planting days and share it. And I'd love to share the quote that we spoke about earlier, a couple of one proverb, and then your beautiful quote to finish the interview. And from my part, it's a Chinese proverb, and it's the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Yep. And think about the people that are going to get to enjoy it 20, 40, 60 years down the road. That's very satisfying. Yeah.
I think about hopefully my grandchildren and even great-grandchildren sitting under the trees that we plant today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well worth it. So.
It's pretty exciting. Would you like to read your quote that you had prepared?
Yes. For this observations project, and I wrote a artist statement, all that, but it starts out with a quote by Leslie Sutton, and this is it. The gift the artist offers to share with us is the mindful and prayerful act of seeing, for in order to make material from their thoughts and ideas, they have to spend time noticing, looking intently, making careful observation of the minutiae of things, the negative spaces between objects, the expression and emotion of faces, the effects of light and shadow, shades of color, variety of texture, shape, and form. This act of seeing slows us down and invites us to pay attention to the moment, to be still, not to rush and only take a quick glance, but instead to come into relationship with the world around it. This is a form of prayer where we become detached from our own limited perspective and make way for a wider, more compassionate understanding of ourselves, others, and the world we inhabit. And it so perfectly captures, for me, what that project was about. And I read it because I've got it in my little calendar. I read it almost every day and remind myself that that is the purpose of this. So, that's all.
That is beautiful. If you don't mind, I'll wrap it up and I'll put it in the post at the end of this interview so people can hopefully reread it. And I think there's some wonderful messages in there about life and art. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure, and I'm so glad you asked me to do it.
Oh, and it's being brave and putting yourself out there, and thank you. I know it's not something that you do every day, and
wouldn't want to every day.
No, it's quite I'm always exhausted afterwards as well. I always go, oh, okay, I need a drink. It's a bit early to drink though.
But you make it very comfortable, and it is nice to think of it as just a conversation instead of presentation. Things like that.
No, I love just having a chat. It's just nice to have a chat and share your beautiful work with others, and hopefully they're inspired. And we always finish with a little a video, and then I like to put up comments of people. So please, if you're still watching, which we've still got plenty of people watching, pop a comment now for Barbara and say thank you. Just show some gratitude for a beautiful time and efforts in sending me the images, in spending time doing a test call on Wednesday, and the mental energy that goes into it. So thank you so much, Barbara. I really, really appreciate it.
And thank you to everybody who came to listen.
Beautiful. We'll see you soon. Hang on the line and we'll say goodbye after.
Okay.